Well, hello there, my name is HW. Thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. We all know the Kemper can rock, but can it funk? Obviously, the answer is yes. Now, we recently did a video called King of Clean Amps, in which I talked about how saturated I thought the 65 twin reverb amp could get. I talked about speakers. I talked about just the amp in total, and it was supposed to be like a little sneak peek. Check out this cool amp that we were working with to make the 65 twin Verb Kemper profile pack. Now, that all's fine and well, but I got this comment on YouTube that really started making me think. It's from Avatar 7x7, and it says, you have a lot of funk, R&B, and fusion players who like ultra clean amps with pedals for breakup and overdrive. Makes no sense to insist every guitar amp should be slated for rock guitar styles. Players who love George Benson, Paul Jackson Jr., Nile Rodgers, and Prince love the Silverface Fender Twins of the 70s because of the crisp, clean tone that's ideal for jazz and funk. Okay, the reason I say Silverface is because there are what we call blackface circuits are usually the first or second or the most popular iterations of blackface circuits. In the case of the Fender, it's the AB763. There's different designations for the circuit because Fender would change the circuits up. By the time we get the first Silverface amps in 67, late 67, some of the circuits are not changing significantly at all, if at all, right? It really depends on the model and what they put, and you really cannot trust Fender stickers on the inside of amps. You kind of have to open them up and look and just make sure they didn't do anything weird, because there are all these transitions. You know, maybe they were changing the model over. They didn't have any more of one part, so they substituted a part, but they didn't switch to the new transformer. So they might have been making amps for 30 days, 60 days that aren't this circuit or this circuit, but it has a piece of this circuit and a piece of this circuit. So the reason I say 70s Silverface is because by 67, you've got some Silverface stuff. By 69, there's some circuit changes. By 71, there's a lot more circuit changes. By 73, you've got crazy stuff like ultra linear twins. You've got master volumes on everything, push-pull master. They're significantly different circuits. Okay, but back to funk. Included in the pack and for free down below, because I love you guys, is a free profile called the 65 Twin Verb Funk Profile. And it sounds like this. Okay, now 3 things you can do and that we did to this profile. Actually, 2 of which we did and 3 of which you should experiment with. Number 1, we upped the compressor. Funk is a lot about compression, especially if you want those thin Nile Rodgers funk tones, right? That's like the 2 position or the neck or the 4 position where you're getting that that hollow sound. He does that a ton. You got to get a lot of nice compression in there. There's 2 ways you can add compression in the Kemper. So tip number 1, add compression, okay? 2 ways you can do that in the Kemper. You can up the compressor in the A block, just a compressor in the front of your chain, which we did. Other way, which you can experiment with, you can up the compression in the amp section. You could also, if you want, put like a compressor in slot X, and you could do some what would be essentially off-board compression or outboard compression, where you'd be adding a compressor after the microphones, to really just compress that signal. Okay, number 2, clean that profile up. Even small amps like a Deluxe or Princeton can actually be used for funk tones if you consider that the Kemper can actually clean them up and keep volume up. See, in the real world, we like the twin reverb for funk because the cleans are loud enough to hear in a band context. But Deluxes and Princetons, you're not going to be able to do that. They're going to start breaking up before you get enough decibels. But part of that is the efficiency of the speaker, and part of that is because we don't have as much surface of speaker when we have one speaker compared to 2 speakers. Plus, a twin reverb has more volume and is just louder, and it's cleaner, kind of longer than a Deluxe. All that to say this, you can actually clean up the Kemper by reducing the gain. That's tip number 2. Reduce the gain, and then you have full control over volume, because in the Kemper, gain and volume are fully decoupled. The Princeton actually has a really great tone, and it's something that it's hard to do live, but you could capture a Princeton clean in a studio. You just have to compress it and up the volume. Luckily, because we're using compressors more heavily when we're talking about funk a lot of times, you actually are going to be okay getting a lower signal to start because you're going to compress and squash it down. Third thing is actually a really cool tip, and you should experiment with this, although we didn't do this on the funk profile. We just left it at 0, but you can experiment a bunch because you can get different tones out of it like this. Go in the amplifier section of your Kemper and work with the direct mix control. Turning up that direct mix control actually works in direct signal into the Kemper profile. That is a studio trick that a lot of guys have used in the past. Layer in a little bit of clean sort of behind it. Okay, now check out these 3 clips where I'm using the same profile, 3 different positions of the Strat, and just listen to how they change a little bit. Here's 3 little short clips of 3 different positions. Just listen to this funk tone. Do you hear that compressor, that little ba-da-bow, ba-da-bow? You hear it grab on. Now listen, I'm by no means using the max amount of compression here. I think this is actually a pretty moderate amount of compression for funk stuff, because a lot of that, like a lot of the Prince and the Nile Rodgers sound is going to be compress that thing and sort of leave it in a spot in the track where it's always present, always there, but it's not overpowering, It's always funky and present and cool, but that little ba-da-bow, ba-da-bow, that's the thing you want in that compression. Ba-da-bow. Other cool thing the compression does is it grabs the bass and sort of just evens it out in a really cool way. Check out this Jackson 5 sounding clip, right? Where you hear, it instantly to me just sounds like Motown because the Strat is thin sounding and it's playing the part, but as soon as you hit that bass, you get that, you get this sort of compressed, limited bass sound that's really a part of like Motown. Listen to this. And of course, it wouldn't be funk if you didn't play that funky music. And in this play that funky music white boy kind of clip, you get that plucked bass sound. That kind of comes from the slap bass, right? It kind of is like, let's pluck the string up. Let's really make it slap down, boom, boom, it's that like popping sound that you get from plucking and slapping, and you kind of start doing that on the guitar too, and you get a similar poppy tone that with the quack of a Strat and then a compressor on the bass notes, it sounds like funky music. I'm HW. Check out this last one. HW, out.
We used to make the joke that the politically correct version of this song is perform that syncopated music Caucasian person.